concept of demand. Everything in economics stems from the concepts of supply and demand. The entire economic world descends from this. And so, what we've learned so far is that economics begins with the idea of human action, that individuals act, and because scarcity exists, we have to make choices. Scarcity exists, therefore we have to make choices. Because of those choices, then when we act on those choices, we have to interact. That there's not enough stuff out there to satisfy what everybody wants. So because of that, we as humans have to prioritize what we want, what we need, and exchange what we do well for that which other people do well. And so it all leads us to this concept here called demand and supply. And when we're thinking about demand, we're thinking about somebody buying something. When we think about supply, we think about somebody selling something. So we're going to spend the next couple of days looking at the concept of demand, and then we'll follow with supply, and then we'll follow that by putting them together and learning about how prices work. So demand is very simply the desire and willingness and ability of somebody to buy a product at each possible price. And so to demand something, I have to have the desire, the ability, and the willingness to buy the product. If I have the desire but I don't have the ability, then I can't demand it. For example, I may want a Lamborghini, but on a teacher's salary, I'm not going to be able to buy a Lamborghini. So there's the desire, but there's not the ability. I may have the ability to buy, say, a fish sandwich, but I don't like fish. So I don't have the desire or the willingness to buy that product. So therefore, I'm not going to demand it, even though I have the ability. I have the means to do so. And so when we look at demand, it's how much we are willing to buy a product and how much are we able to. But then we look at this concept called quantity demanded. And understand this is a really important idea here, that quantity demanded is a little bit different than demand, and that's going to be really important as we get later on. In quantity demanded, basically it's the amount of each good customers or consumers will demand at each possible price. And when we say all things being equal, that means nothing else has changed. The only thing that has changed is the price. And so think about, if gas is $5 a gallon, how much gas are you going to buy? And beyond that, how much are you going to drive? Might you change your behavior because gas is $5 a gallon? Might you buy a more fuel-efficient car? Or if you had the means to, move closer to work or get a job closer to your home? Or carpool more often, consolidate trips. So therefore you're demanding less gas, you're buying less gas if you do that. If gas is $1 a gallon, however, you're not likely to do those things, therefore you're likely to buy more gas. And so, and you can think about it in other ways. If a burger at McDonald's is $4, how much are you likely to buy that, or how often would you go to McDonald's to buy that burger? If it goes down to $2, how often are you likely to buy it? How much of that burger are you likely to buy? It goes down to $1, how much are you going to buy? And so you're likely to buy more the cheaper something is. And so the law of demand basically states that the quantity demanded is inverse to price. In other words, as the price goes up, quantity demanded goes down. We're less likely to buy something. As the price goes down, it goes up. And so what we can say is, if we plot that on a graph, the demand curve slopes downward. And we'll see that on the next slide. This concept is based on this economics concept called marginal utility, which is the basic idea that the extra usefulness and satisfaction we get from a product. The more we use something, the less usefulness we get, and as a result, we're not as likely to pay as much for it. And so I'll give you a good example. When I first began my career 20-some years ago, my first job out of college, I needed clothes. I needed professional clothes, things I could wear to work. So dress shirts, dress pants, things like that. Because you don't have a whole lot of those when you're in college. And so I maybe would have been willing to spend, say, $30 or $40 for a shirt in today's money because I needed it. And I really didn't have the ability or the time to look for what was on sale. But I did have the ability to maybe go to find the cheapest shirts I could find, but that were still of decent quality. So, so I really didn't have the ability to be really picky on price. I just had to buy, 4 or 5 shirts so I could have enough to get through a week, or 4 or 5 pair of pants so I could have enough to get through a week. Today, I've been in professional jobs for 20 plus years. I have a professional wardrobe. So I do not need to demand an extra shirt. I'm not going to get extra usefulness and satisfaction from getting a new shirt unless there's some specific reason for it. And so I'm not as likely to pay $20 for a shirt, or, but if it's 10, I might, because I feel like I'll get probably more than $10 worth of usefulness and satisfaction out of it, but I don't need it as much. And so, therefore, I'm not as likely to buy it. So there's what we call the law of diminishing marginal utility, which means that the more we use something, the less satisfaction we're going to get from it. And the basic idea here is that the cost of what I'm buying is less than the value of the use I'm going to get for it. So, for example, if I buy a $1 cheeseburger, I'm expecting to get at least $1 or more out of usefulness and satisfaction from that cheeseburger. It's going to satisfy my hunger, and that is worth more to me than the $1 I spent on it. But if that cheeseburger is $3, maybe I don't spend it. Or if I just ate, I don't need a $1 cheeseburger to satisfy my hunger. Therefore, I'm not going to get $1 worth of usefulness and satisfaction out of it. Therefore, I'm not going to buy it. So the more we use something, the less extra usefulness we get for it, and therefore the less likely we are to demand or buy something. We can plot the quantity demanded on a graph, and we call that the demand schedule. So if you look over at the left, and we have this, think about soda in a vending machine. And I like to tell this story. Several years ago, we had this vending machine in our school that sold cans of Pepsi, we were a Pepsi school at the time, for 50 cents a piece. And so I, being somebody who didn't care as much about my health at the time, would buy 2 cans of Pepsi every day. So I'd bring $1 every day, and I'd get a can of Pepsi in the morning and a can of Pepsi at lunch, and that would get me through the day. And so then one day the price was raised to $1, and I stopped buying Pepsi from that machine. It was too much. So my demand went from 0 cans of Pepsi, went to 0 cans of Pepsi from 2 a day. So I was buying 10 cans a week. I suddenly was buying 0 cans of Pepsi a week. I actually shifted and went to the store and bought my own, and then later switched to a substitute, water, because it's cheaper and more healthy. So think about a soda machine here. How many cans of soda would you buy each month from a soda machine? Well, if it's 25 cents, you might buy 60. That's 15 a week. It's like 3 a day. So if it's 50 cents, you might buy 45. And so if it's $1 now, you buy 30. You only buy 1 a day, or 1.5 a day, since you usually only go to school or go to work 20 days in a month. If the price goes up to $1.50, maybe you only buy 15. If the price goes up to $2, well, you have to satisfy your thirst 7 times. It's worth it to you. If the price goes up to 3, you buy 2. If the price goes up to 4, you buy 0. And you can plot this on a graph. The vertical axis is always price. The horizontal axis is always quantity. And so you see that a demand curve slopes downward. What that means is, as the price goes down, the quantity demanded goes up. In other words, the cheaper something is, the more people are going to buy it, and the more likely people are to buy it. And so we call that a shift in quantity demanded. That as the price goes down, the willingness to buy something goes up. And so more people are going to buy it. And that explains why people, put things on sale. And so understand, sellers compete against sellers. And so if there's not a lot of scarcity, if there's more buyers than sellers, what you're going to see is the price will go down as the sellers are competing with each other to get those sales. And as the price goes down, more things will get sold. So you think, why don't we just lower the price of everything? Well, we'll explain that when we look at supply. And so Let's look at really quickly why quantity demanded increases when the price decreases. There's two reasons for that. In other words, why does the demand curve slope downward? One of them is what we call the income effect. And basically the idea is when the price drops, I can get the same usefulness for a lower price, so I feel like I've saved income. So for example, let's say a shirt retails for $30. I'm not going to feel like I get $30 worth of usefulness out of that shirt, so I'm not going to buy it. But if the price goes down to $15, I do, because now I get the same usefulness out of that shirt that you got for 30 bucks. So I'm getting, say, what to me might be a little bit less than that. But let's say, just for purposes of the hypothetical here, I'm getting $30 worth of usefulness out of that shirt. I'm getting the exact same usefulness out of it that you got, that you paid $30 for, but I only paid $15. So not only do I have the usefulness of a $30 shirt, I also have $15 extra because I only spent 15 bucks for it. So I have the feeling of added income. I get the usefulness of a more expensive item while paying less for it. So I have the money still in my pocket that I saved. There's also what we call the substitution effect. The price of one good is now cheaper than a substitute, so I'll purchase the cheaper goods. So for example, let's say pork is $2 a pound. Beef is $2.50. Well, if I'm buying solely on price, pork and beef are substitutes for each other, I'm more likely to buy pork because it's cheaper. However, if beef now is $1.50 a pound, I will buy beef instead of pork because now it is cheaper. And so as a result, the quantity demanded for beef goes up because of the fact that the price went down. More people are going to buy beef now because of the lower price. And so we substitute beef for pork because beef is now a lower price than it was before. And so both of these things cause movement along the demand curve. We move up and down the demand curve. So the next video, we're going to look at elasticity, and what I will probably do is take a look at that and then also point you to another video that really shows elasticity. Thanks for watching.